I don't suppose I ought to be telling you anything about this, but I just feel like I got to tell somebody. And the whole thing's over with now, so I guess it really doesn't matter much. You know, my big old dog Max, he's just nuts about puppies, kittens, and babies. Every time he sees a kitten especially, he starts dancing around making ooh-ooh noises and generally acting like a fool. He always reminds me of the Looney Tunes Abominable Snowman. He wants to hug them, squeeze them, and pet their pretty fur, and so on and so forth. That's why I named his first cat George. I was going to get one of my sister's cat's kittens. He already knew them, and they weren't afraid of him, even though one leg would rock them back on their pretty little feet and wash their entire face. And their mother objected strenuously to never trying to get one up and carry it around. Anyway, my nephew gave away all the kittens and said, save the me one. So I ended up with an older cat, but still more or less a kitten, that my son found for me. George wasn't afraid of dogs, and Max doted on him. He was all white except for a splotch of black fur on his head between his ears and the waist down his neck, like a bad toupee. Really, we all loved George. He was good company. It was right about that time when small pets started disappearing around the area. My sister lost 2 rat terriers, a beagle, and several cats, and some of my neighbors' cats were vanished. We couldn't tell what it was. No prints, no signs, just missing critters. Not George, though. Max is 55 pounds of muscle with particularly big fangs. A powerful dog. I've seen him punch holes in a tin can with his teeth and crack open a raw thigh bone with his ear. He would never let anything happen to George or to Pumpkin, his faithful sidekick dog. You see, Max was abused when he was a puppy, and part of his torment was being kept in the yard with a big old Catahoula cur who wouldn't let any other dog eat in her presence. Max likes another dog in company, but he always likes to be the biggest. Pumpkin just showed up at my place. You know how it is in the country. People just dump dogs and cats without imagining that we couldn't take in every blessed one. I wonder how many of these dumped animals just disappeared like our pet animals were doing. I guess the country's a good hunting ground for anything that's mean enough to eat cats and little dogs. Anyway, Pumpkin was probably part dachshund and part beagle. And Max took to him before I'd hardly realized he was in the yard. He would hold open the doggy door with his snout to let Pumpkin come in. And those big, soulful, doggy eyes of his looked at me like, can we keep him? And so we did. And he was about the sweetest dog you ever knew. He was a great sidekick, a great road dog, and a great lap dog. We must have traveled about 5,000 miles together, Pumpkin and me. So that was all of us. Max, Pumpkin, and George, and somewhere out there was that mystery thing, taking the small pets and stealing them away without a trace. I have seen bobcat prints in my yard, but not often. And anyway, can a bobcat run off with a beagle? The pumas stay deep in the woods. They don't ever come sneaking up to people's houses. Coyotes or wild dogs or even wolves, might be. It just didn't seem right for them. Not a lot of missing poultry, for one thing. It just bothered me. So Pumpkin and George would say he was for my sisters and my neighbors' cats. I used to go down to Houston on the weekend, drop Max and Pumpkin off at my son's place, and take George down with me to my friend Lucy's house, where they spoiled him rotten and made flush over him. I'd take him on a leash with a harness. He hated having me put it on him, but he put up with it pretty well once he was buckled up. He would ride the car like it was a totally natural thing, usually in my lap, sometimes on top of Pumpkin in my lap. Not exactly a dog pile, but a pet pile anyway. And he sure knew how to make a beeline to Lucy's front door when I'd let him out of the car. All that being said, he would make a fuss sometimes when it was time to get him leashed up, hide under the bed or under the house, and refused to come out until I found the suitable treat, until he just gave up and came when I called. One weekend though, he decided to be stubborn and stay under the house. He wouldn't come out for treats or anything. And I needed to go ahead and get on the road. Okay, I said, you can just take care of the house while we're gone and tough on it if you get bored or lonely. plenty of food in the house, and the mug under the dripping bathroom was off, and plenty of water. Just stay there and party, you silly cat. So I went on down to Houston as planned and left George in charge. We came back. George was there, but there was blood on her. 4 little red spots showing up against that white fur. Oh, I said, this is the worst negligent pet owner in the world. I abandoned my poor kitty, and look what happened. It turned out he had 4 punctures, 2 on each side of his backbone, like very long, very sharp canine teeth. Something just about bit that cat in half. And I had no idea how he could have got loose. It was all just too weird. Then, of course, those wounds got infected and they drained, and it was more horrible and sickening than you can imagine. It was just gruesome, but I kept on cleaning him up and watching him. Eventually, it all started to heal. That's when I saw that one of the bones in his spine was poking out like a little bony bone. I gave up and began to look at him, though I couldn't hardly afford it. Poor little baby. The vet said that he would be able to live a normal life, but he explained to me that a cat's spine was knitted together with little projections on each of the vertebrae. And those projections were broken off on George's popped out bone. It would go back into place a little bit as his lost muscle mass came back. It would never be like it was. He really had almost been bitten in half, and I couldn't fix it. He was made for life as far as I was concerned. He didn't seem to care, but I felt like the lowest of the low for letting this happen to me. His sleek white profile was always below. You know how you can't have a white dog in East Texas. It turns orange from all that red dirt. And a cat can roll in the dirt like George did all the time and wash himself up just as clean as you please, white as snow. Now, though, there will always be a tough hair sticking up on his smooth white back because his spine was deformed and it was all my fault. I vowed never to leave any of the small pets in the house alone ever again, and I never have. Nothing but nothingness with anything around my house but Max is bad. Well, there's a story through here, but really, Max is a darn good bodyguard for all of us. Since then, nothing else happened to anybody in my house, but I kept wondering about that thing that almost ate George. Max kept an eye out from time to time. He'd lay a dead rat or something in the driveway and ran around until I would notice and tell him what a good dog he was. He knew enough not to bring that stuff into the house. I'd already buried a dead squirrel that hauled up on the couch with him, like a snack for watching TV. And that dead rabbit that he kept dragging in every time I would take it outside. Finally, he got to that thing. Don't give that stuff to Mom, she'll just waste it. Still, he sure wanted credit for the kills. I didn't think anything about it when he started prancing about the yard for me to see what he got. But that was sure no rat. It looked like the cartoon Tasmanian Devil. Yeah, I watched too many cartoons. About 3 feet tall, nearly as big as Max. Big dark eyes, a short muzzle instead of the nose, and long, sharp fangs, and a really wide set of jaws. It was covered with dabbled fur in shades of greenish brown, thinner on the body, but with a thick ruff around the neck and shoulder area, almost like a mane. The thing was clearly meant to walk upright, with front legs like arms and hands instead of paws, only with sharp claws on the hands and feet to go with teeth. And something or other around one of its wrists that looked kind of like a watch, just not with any markings that I could recognize. It had a sort of metal mesh band, but softer and more flexible than anything Timex ever made. And there were a couple rows of strange lighted symbols. They blinked and changed as long as I watched them. Oh, damn, it had to be something intelligent. And Max had gone and killed it. Were we about to start an interstellar war? Hell if I knew, but no matter what, it shouldn't have tried to eat George like that. Intelligent as it might have been, it sure wasn't polite. What kind of manners is it going over somebody's planet and eating up their pets without even asking anybody's permission? What to do about it now, though? That's what really occupied my thoughts. What in the world to do? I ended up just sacking it up in a garbage bag and buried it in the back under the maple tree next to the dead rabbit cat. I told you there was another story. And just tried to forget about the whole thing. I didn't want some kind of alien swooping down and taking revenge on the whole household. And I most certainly didn't want a whole herd of scientists and reporters poking around and digging up the entire property. So I didn't tell a soul about it at the time. That's where things stood until the night something tried to get into the house. It was about 2 in the morning when I heard a funny noise, almost like some kind of alarm or siren, but only for a few seconds, and then something buzzing its way up the driveway, then something on the back porch banging on the door. I was going to open the door, but it's never locked out here in the middle of nowhere, and yelling, "Who's out there?" But Max got between me and the door and wouldn't let me. I reached across him with one hand and locked the door, and then I called 911 while Max stayed just inside the dog's door, barking and growling, every hair standing on end. And Ginger, another story, but we lost our pumpkin sometime it was the Georgia incident, and I got Ginger from the shelter. Stayed behind me and kept on barking. I told the dispatcher that somebody was out there and never called or said who it was, and the dogs didn't want me to open the door. The dispatcher said, "You listen to those dogs. I'm sending out the sheriff's deputies, and you just stay on the line until they get here." As we talked, Becky kept on barking and growling, and there was some lights moving out there, really bright, like spotlights. But Max, bless his heart, never tried to go outside. He stayed right there on the inside. At least I won't ever get sued by any would-be prowler if he sticks to his method of doing it. Before the deputies arrived, the lights and noises stopped, and I could see the hair laying down on Max's neck and back. I told the dispatcher that whoever it was, that they were gone. But the deputies arrived minutes later and took a good look around to see the case. The dogs went sailing and scrambling through the doggy door and jumped all over the deputies like it was a party. Oh boy, 3 in the morning, we had company. You could tell who the good guys were, or at least the dogs could tell. It was only a couple days later that I noticed a sunken spot in the ground where that thing had been buried. Someone had dug him up and taken off with him. So maybe his folks came and got him, took his body home for whatever kind of thing funeral they used to have. And since they didn't burn down my house or bust down my door and slaughter me, I suppose that's the end of the whole thing. I guess it's okay for me to tell somebody since it doesn't for anyone to find back then. Still, I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell the whole world, okay?
Hi, I'm Joe Grisafi. I'm a filmmaker here in Houston, Texas. I'm also a casting director. Deborah and James were kind enough to invite me to be a guest at Con-Jour 2012, where we're showing my films Laughing Boy, Dead of Night, and a rough cut of Lars the Emo Kid. I'm also hosting some panels on getting into independent filmmaking and acting and low-budget filmmaking here in town. I'm thankful for everyone that's come to see us, and I'm glad to be here.
A Likely Story by Margaret Pennington. It was after the sun had gone down, you see, and the weather was terrible. Thunderclouds discharged lightning bolts, rain and hail poured intermittently, and you could see nothing in between the lightning flashes due to the total absence of light because of the thunderclouds.
Why don't you just say it was a dark and stormy night?
Let me start again. This occurred in only a single instance, you see, at a particular point in history.
Are you trying to say it happened once upon a time?
Damn it. It was in the past, way back in the past, and it didn't happen on our planet even, but in some other star system.
Got it. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
Do you want to hear this?
Oh, you're doing fine. Go on.
Okay. A guy walked into a bar.
You're kidding. This is supposed to be funny.
It's not funny. He was hurt very badly.
What?
It was a large steel bar, part of a construction site. His name was David. He'd been walking quickly without paying attention because of the rain and hit the bar hard enough to cause a concussion. When he woke up, he was in a hospital, his head bandaged. But although his head hurt, he was experiencing a surprising sense of relief. You see, the society on the planet Thunderbird was a rather restrictive one, a big brother sort of government under the control of the state religion, which was especially repressive. David had been a nervous sort all his life, careful to toe the line.
So to speak.
No, in this case, there was an actual line. It was thought to eliminate untidy pedestrianism if one were required to follow painted stripes on the sidewalk, placing the feet very carefully, you see. I told you it was a restrictive society. The bar David walked into had been illegally placed across one of the lines. Otherwise, he never would have hit it and had no reason to expect it. Anyway, although he'd never been a pedestrian...
You just said he was walking.
Oh, I see how that could be confusing. I mean, he never subscribed to that particular religion.
What religion?
Pedestrianism. One of the 5,000 pagan sects challenging the state religion. Anyway, although he'd never been part of that ascetic practice.
They were ascetic pedestrians?
Well, they scrimped a lot on transportation. But my point is that David, avoiding any extreme unsanctioned belief, had a degree of conformity that was unusual. He was a careful soul, never breaking any of the 143 commandments.
Good Lord, how could anyone keep track of 143?
Well, it wasn't that hard. Most of them were things you wouldn't want to do anyway. For example, it was illegal to wear your parents' underwear or to kill people on Friday.
Why would you want to kill people on Friday?
Exactly. It's said by some scholars from other planets, of course, that the prophet Acetaldehyde was pretty well hammered when he brought the commandments down the Great Beanstalk.
Ah.
As I was saying, David had been an extremely conscientious person until the accident.
What do you mean?
Apparently, the collision damaged the frontal lobes, but only in a very limited area. After the accident, he could no longer be said to be a conservative, but become...
You don't mean?
Yes, a heretic. It seemed to progress slowly. Then as scar tissue formed in the brain, the symptoms worsened. At first, all anyone noticed was a slight irreverence in his tone when speaking of the clergy. Then he began to giggle in church. He left off reading his official daily scripture and was eventually caught reading the religious writings of another sect. This was seriously forbidden, and normally would have earned him severe punishment. But because of the accident and his injury, his sentence was light. He had to spend 100 hours washing the feet of the poor.
That doesn't sound so bad.
Well, it could have been worse, but it was no joke. The poor were in fairly good health on Thunderbird, and they could fight like wolverines.
Wait, they didn't want their feet washed?
Well, why would they? They were perfectly clean because of the Cleanliness is Next to Godliness national showering facilities. There they'd be, minding their own business, when David would make a flying leap out of nowhere, tackle them to the ground, strip off their footwear, and start in with the scrub brush. They all wanted to kill him.
It must have been dangerous for him.
No, he did it on Fridays. Still, it was unpleasant and embarrassing, and he was beaten up a good bit. But he eventually completed his 100 hours community service and was granted absolution. Everyone thought that would have cured him. But no, he kept on reading the forbidden works, and then one day, he started adding to them.
Oh, dear God. What did he write?
It was actually very simple. He had a small tract on Frisbeeism, and at the end, after Amen, he wrote, "State clerics eat boogers."
Had he gone crazy to take such a risk?
Well, there was really no risk involved, as David knew, although it was considered a capital crime.
How could that be?
Well, it was illegal for anyone to read the tract. Anyone at all. So the authorities were no doubt perfectly aware he'd done it, but could not acknowledge that fact for fear of being arrested themselves. David soon realized all the implications of this, and in his euphoria over his newfound intellectual freedom, began to taunt the authorities, mentioning them by name and writing things like, "Brother Spartacus walks like an ostrich," or "Sister Chlamydia is wearing her parents' underwear." He knew they would just have to look, but that they could never admit it.
The perfect crime.
It would have been, but there was a new pope. He'd been in office only a short time, just getting used to the job, and was pretty tired of reading jokes about himself without being able to do a thing about it. So he granted an indulgence.
Oh, no.
Yes. He allowed certain elevated hierarchy to read the tracts without fear of punishment. It was hugely controversial, but it let the cat out of the bag as far as David was concerned.
Let me guess. You're talking about an actual cat, aren't you?
Its name was Sambone, and it could track any criminal whose scent was within 100 miles. It came out of the official ceremonial bag, with David's smell in its nose and a thirst for David's blood in its heart. It cornered him in the bathroom of a convenience store, and there was no escape. The authorities had him, and now they had the evidence.
So he was convicted?
Oh, yes. Sentenced to the ultimate penalty possible.
I'm afraid to ask. What was it?
Damnation.
Did you forget something?
No, damnation. That was the sentence.
So he's in prison awaiting damnation?
No, he runs a t-shirt shop on Babel Street. But when he dies, if in fact there is a hell, and these people actually have the ability to send someone there, he'll be in some serious trouble.
So that's his punishment, to lose life in fear?
He's not too worried, to be honest.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
What?
Well, it's kind of a stupid story.
You should be careful, taking in vain the name of the Holy Pete.
Oh, shut up.
Hi, I'm Roxy, and we will be doing an interview for the author of a licensing book. So, what's the name of your book?
The name of my book is Dark Alliance, Morgan's Brood, Book 3.
Ooh. Now, may I ask who the author's name is?
Well, you'll notice that there are two names here. There are two authors. The first author's name is Heather Poinsett Dunbar. Why is she not here, though? Ooh, she's shy. My name is the second one. It's Christopher Dunbar. So I'm the co-author and second fiddle. But for some reason, I get chosen for these PR events.
I know a Heather. I like to be your friend.
Oh, you know a Heather? Who might that be?
Another girl.
Oh, another girl named Heather. Oh.
All right. So, what was your inspiration to write the book?
Inspiration. I would have to say that my wife, Heather, had a dream one night about a woman who was being forced to marry. This was in the ancient Irish Celtic times when women could choose with whom they married. Her family was forcing her to marry, and so she became so upset that while at the altar, she killed her betrothed and the entire wedding party. So we thought this was an excellent way to start a story around Irish mythology. This was the myth of the first deer Jew.
This is very interesting. How I never created a book about my dreams. I dream about meat and the piano.
And the piano with meat. Wow.
Well, that's all. So, is there any reason why I should have dreams? I heard that dreams come from things that you've seen all the day.
That's a good question. I think because she's a librarian and she likes to research books, that she had seen this legend in a book and it came to her in a dream.
That is a very good logical reason, but obviously I'm not logical. Really not logical. Oh, I hope your book gets really, really famous. Yeah, sounds like an interesting book. Hope you have a good time. Give me a hug.
Aww.